Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and I'd like to tell you an amazing story about a patient that I recently had that had just an incredible outcome that I thought would be very interesting to share with you. I also want to tell you in this video about how to choose the best vitamin D supplement and which vitamin D supplements you absolutely want to avoid. About 8 months ago, a patient came to me complaining of the strangest thing. He was living on the East Coast. He had done some seminars and some work in Colorado and fell in love with it here and wanted to move here. But every time he'd come here to job search or do a seminar, his blood sugar would rise to diabetic level. He would go back to the East Coast. Within a couple of days, his blood sugar levels would normalize. Every time he'd come back out here, blood sugar levels would rise again to diabetic levels. Basically, when he came to Colorado, he had diabetes, and when he back to the East Coast, he didn't. It was something I had never seen before. I checked his digestion, his lymphatic system, his stress levels. I went through the whole kind of litany of questions that I asked to qualify or to determine what the underlying imbalances are, how moving to Colorado, possibly the altitude stress, could somehow impact him in this very, very strange way. Altitude really can explain a lot of reasons why people have trouble living in Colorado, but really blood sugar doesn't quite fit. So it was very, very strange. And when someone doesn't fit the profile, they don't fit the patterns of imbalance that I normally see, it doesn't make any sense. The first thing I think of is deficiencies. I wrote a whole series of articles and videos on deficiencies that affect more than half the world's population. We did one on vitamin D, we did one on vitamin B12, we did one on iodine. These are all deficiencies that are worldwide problems that we at LifeSpa talk a lot about and show you how to deal with that, how to test for that, how to make sure you're not at risk for any of these types of deficiencies. So I checked him for his vitamin D levels. His vitamin D levels, we had him do a test, and his numbers were significantly low, below 20, which is really knocking on the door of getting rickets. He was an African American corporate executive. He was very busy, perhaps very stressed, although he didn't seem stressed. The darker your skin, darker pigment skin, need 2 to 3 times as much vitamin D than other folks. So, it just made sense that anyone, all of us, should have our vitamin D levels tested, but definitely African Americans, any skin color that is darker needs to be tested because of the difficulty it is in the Northern Hemisphere to get adequate vitamin D for anybody. So this was an important thing. We tested it, turned out to be positive. I gave him optimal levels, like 10,000 IUs of vitamin D for 3 months and 5,000 for 2 months, and then I hadn't heard a word from him. About a month ago, his wife came to my office, and she looked at me and she told me the story, and she said, "Remember my husband?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "We just moved to Colorado." And I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, his blood sugar is completely normal. It turned out it was a vitamin D deficiency, and that solved all of our problems." And it was just the most amazing story how something so exotic, so strange, something you would never think of. And he had been to so many practitioners trying to figure this out and really couldn't come up with any type of understanding or logic or solution to this. And it was as simple as a vitamin D deficiency. So please make sure that you get your vitamin D levels tested now. At the end of the summer, when the sunlight has accumulated in our fat cells and the vitamin D levels are the highest they're going to be all year long, get them tested now. We have a vitamin D test kit, little skin prick test. You send it in the mail. You don't need a doctor's visit. There's really no excuse to not get that vitamin D levels tested. Optimal levels are between 50 and 80 nanograms per milliliter. That's where you want to be the rest of your life. You want to know where you are, and you don't want to guess any longer. The research is just simply too compelling. And we're talking about 50% less respiratory infections, 17% less flus in the wintertime, seasonal affective disorders, colds, depressions in the wintertime, critically important, chronic disease dramatically cut, heart disease, blood pressure, about 50 to 60% reduction in almost all cancers. About 2,000 of our genes are protected by vitamin D. So much that we should do from, basically it's the sun. We take this body out of the sun Like any living organism, they wither and they die. And we've been battling chronic disease for the last 100 years because we have slowly but surely taken ourselves away from the sun. We've been told the sun is bad. That was a mistake. We've been lathering with sunscreens to avoid the sun at all costs. That was a mistake, and now we're paying the price. Nobody's saying get sunburned or be dangerously exposed, but you have to make sure you optimize your levels. Best way is with a blood test. Now, how do you choose which vitamin D is the best for you? Well, about 1920s and 30s, vitamin D was first discovered, and they synthesized vitamin D from funguses. And they patented the process, and the pharmaceutical companies own that process. They've been basically using vitamin D2 as a prescription form of vitamin D for the last 50 years or so or more. And as a result, and that worked great for getting rid of rickets. It raised your numbers up, plenty good to keep you from getting osteoporosis or rickets and things like that. But in the last 10 years, the rules have completely changed. The research on vitamin D and how it acts more like a hormone at higher levels versus just a vitamin to protect your bone density at lower levels makes vitamin D2 simply obsolete. There are so many studies. In the article associated with this video, I cite all the studies that have been done on why we should not use vitamin D2. If you go to your doctor and they check your levels, they may give you a prescription of 50,000 IUs of vitamin D2 per week for 6 weeks, for 16 weeks to optimize your levels. I've had many patients be on this very high dose prescription of vitamin D2. I have not seen one optimize your levels between 50 and 80 nanograms per milliliter. I've had patients who have been on that dose for a couple of years and still end up in the low 30s, still just insufficient to really get the magical benefits that we're looking at from optimal levels of vitamin D. It doesn't absorb nearly as well. Vitamin D2 it has toxicity issues at higher dosages, much more than vitamin D3. Vitamin D2 is a plant-based vitamin D. It's for invertebrates, it's for plants. It never was in the human body until we put it there 50, 70 years ago. And vitamin D3, on the other hand, is from the sun. And this is the human source of vitamin D. And at higher levels, it stops acting like a vitamin. It starts acting like a hormone. And it has an incredible effectiveness as a hormone in the body. In fact, it's the most powerful and potent hormone, steroid hormone that we have in our body. So it's really important to make sure we reap those benefits from the point of view of protection from toxic exposure that we're in, immune building support. A recent study that I talked about in my last newsletter about how to boost your immunity now in the wintertime, I talked about the most amazing study I've seen in a long time, and how our killer T cells, which are the big guns of our immune system, simply lie dormant unless they have an appropriate amount of vitamin D in their system before they engage in battle and boost our immunity. Our whole immune system responds based on adequate levels of the sun. So we have been told the wrong thing about the sun. Unfortunately, many of us are still on vitamin D2. That really needs to change. Get vitamin D3, optimize your levels, get them tested. The research is conclusive. The pharmaceutical companies, which now their patent is over, they're in the process of switching to vitamin D3, and that's just something that hasn't happened quite yet. And as a result, that's also why the medical doctors haven't really been telling all their patients about this, because they get a lot of their information from their pharmaceutical reps who just really aren't in the business of telling anybody about vitamin D because they don't have the appropriate supplement. So we have to read the research and become educated and realize that this is something that is very, very important. It is the sun, and we've lost our connection with it. And it's the one vitamin, which is really not a vitamin at all, is more of a hormone that keeps us alive, keeps our immune system strong, protects us from cancers, autoimmune conditions, diabetes, heart disease, like no other vitamin or hormone on the planet. It is the sun. It keeps us alive. It's what got us here. So please don't miss the opportunity this winter to optimize your levels and stay healthy all winter long. Please check out my website at LifeSpa.com for more information about the home vitamin D test kit, more articles about how vitamin D can help you, and please read the article associated with this video as well. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.